Have you ever felt overwhelmed by your emotions in the moment and you just want to figure out a way to be able to stay calm and clear headed? Let's take a look at how you could respond to those triggers so that you have more peace and control. The first step is just pause and breathe. I really started to learn this when my daughter was at a young age. And I had to constantly remind myself that she was just a child and she was learning, she was asking questions, she was figuring things out. And after a long day of work, if she came in and wanted to know something or something happened, she dropped something, broke something, whatever it was, I had to remind myself that what happened in my day, I didn't want it to come out in a negative way for her as a child to see that. And so anytime anything ever happened, I just paused. Sometimes it was really hard. Sometimes she would come back with a very angry comment or something that just I knew triggered me. And I just remembered to pause and take a deep breath because I did not want to snap back at her. One, it wasn't her fault. And two, I didn't want my anger coming across to her that way. I wanted to somehow remind myself that I was coming from a place of love. That's how I wanted her to see me. And remembering to take a couple of deep breaths, especially when I wanted to snap back, because it's so easy after you've had a long day and you still have so much still to do at home. I had to take a moment. I had to remind myself to just breathe because even in that quick second that I take a deep breath and remind myself of how I want to come across to her. And it's how you want to come across in those moments of trigger. Afterwards, I could come back and kind of take a look at the situation and examine what it was that happened, what caused my trigger to want to make me respond the way that I did. And taking a look at it from a different perspective is one way of doing it, but also seeing as to why that feeling or emotion had come up. Why was there something in my past that had happened? Was there a memory that was caused by it? Once I was able to define what the trigger was, then I would start to ask myself, what is this trying to show me? And if it comes from a past memory or a past experience, what was it in that moment in the past that you were feeling? What were you going through at the time? And kind of then bring it into the future to see what the trigger was and how you were feeling. Was it the same? Was it a little bit different? Did it really just hit a nerve that that's something you have to take a look at a little bit deeper? You can also look at the situation of, can I give it a different perspective? Am I looking at this the wrong way? Am I taking it the wrong way? Did somebody just say something to me that really wasn't directed towards me or meant to me, but for some reason that triggered something inside of me? Is there a different way of looking at what just happened? And I go back to a snake incident. There are plenty of people who don't mind snakes. And then there are some that are just terrified of it. And for those people that are terrified of it or scared of those snakes, that's a trigger for them. And so taking a look back into their past, did something happen? What were they feeling in that moment? Because you can get over the things that trigger you. It does take some work, but it is possible. Another way is to actually give what you're feeling a name. And this one took me a little while. I had to go out, print a list of feelings and emotions, and because I kind of only had the basic, maybe 5 of them. And actually putting a word to how I was feeling made a difference. And I had to remind myself that it's okay to feel the way that I was feeling. And that one actually came from somebody else. I was trying to process emotions, and she just said, "It's okay that you're feeling the way that you're feeling." It's almost like I was ashamed to feel how I was feeling and that I wasn't supposed to be feeling that way. But having somebody else say it to you meant all the difference in the world. And then once you are able to figure out what it is that you're feeling, process it without having any guilt. Take a look at it. Like, it is okay that you felt the way that you were feeling based on the situation that happened. It doesn't mean that it's right or wrong, but it is how you felt. And so don't shame yourself or make yourself feel guilty about what it is that you're going through, what it is that you're feeling. But to make sure that it potentially doesn't trigger you in the future, you have to start working through these things. Another way is to set some boundaries. Maybe if you are very well aware that if you're having a conversation with somebody and you just know that that topic is a definite sore spot where you're going to kind of get into a conflict with somebody, just be upfront about them and just be like, I'm not comfortable talking about this. Or if it's something that you're not ready to talk about at the moment, you can also just tell them that. Just be open and honest with the person to set some boundaries of what triggers you and what doesn't. And hopefully that the other person does respect you enough to respect that boundary and to listen and to help you through this trigger that you're trying to go through, that you're trying to heal from. And another way is when I was having some excessive overthinking happening, I would just have to tell myself no or stop. And then I would have to distract myself. And I know that this isn't really the same as a trigger because I am aware that I was going through the healing part of that journey of what was triggering me. And sometimes just distracting yourself for a moment can almost snap you out of that loop and get you onto a different path. And I'm not saying to not deal with the feelings because I had recently heard that if you are constantly pushing your feelings down and not dealing with them, that it's like pushing a ball underwater and eventually it's going to pop back up. And so the way that I would want to deal with it is deal with that ball right then and there. Deal with those emotions and that trigger right then and there so that it is not going to constantly come back up in my life. Hang with me. I've only got a couple more. Look at what the trigger was from. Or was there a pattern that was happening to cause it to happen? Once you take a look at originally where it's from, then working your way on to how to deal with it so that it doesn't come back up for you, it's going to be an amazing experience and you can get through it. And I'm not saying that sometimes it's going to be a one and done thing, or sometimes it's going to take a week or a couple of months. But if you keep at it, it will lessen and it will eventually go away. And if you have to reach out to somebody for help with it, then do so. Work with somebody if it's more than you can handle by yourself. And when I started working with a therapist on certain things that were happening in my life, I wanted to grow from things. And I was dealing with somebody I called a bully because the way that I saw them was that they were always bullying me. And I wanted to be able to stand up for myself. I wanted to put boundaries in place. I wanted to speak up for myself and my daughter. And so that was one of the reasons why I started going to him. And one of the things that he suggested was to have a script ready. So if I came in contact with this person and something was triggered in me, something came up and I could feel it, you start to feel it in your body. And once you're starting to realize what's happening, then you are able to process it a little bit better, a little bit easier. What he told me to do was say, I'm sorry that you feel that way. That I listened to what they had to say and just respond, I'm sorry that you feel that way. He also told me to somewhat distract myself. And so what I ended up doing was in this time, I would tap my big toe. And it was something that it was only I could do. Nobody else would recognize that was happening. Something simple to get your mind almost out of that situation at the time or to put your energy someplace else. And this really worked. I remember the first time that I had this encounter with this person, and I had gone through the work and I had gone through the steps, and I repeated that phrase so many times. I'm sorry that you feel that way, because I that was the way that I could stand up to the bully. That was a way for me to not completely back down and shut down and turn away and run away. And I remember leaving that conversation feeling so good about myself, so scared and timid, but I felt so good that I was at least able to stand there and somewhat speak up. And that was a huge accomplishment for me. And it did get better after that. Mm, Not the relationship between the two of us, but I was able to start to speak up. It was easier for me to tell this person what I wanted or didn't want, how to kind of raise my child. And so the end of that is to have a script ready to say. And for me, that was, I'm sorry that you feel that way. Are there things that you struggle with that you know just trigger you, really get under your nerves? And you can share them with me. I would love to be able to help you work through them, to help you grow, to see what it is that's triggering you and how you can get past it, how you can lessen those triggers, how you can stop that ball from coming back up and hitting you every time.